Alrighty. Here's a video here that's come up from RT. Seeds of Resistance. Palestinian woman smuggles husband's sperm from Israeli prison. Or something like that. Where do we go here? Yeah, that one there. Yeah. That kid seems to have fairly blue eyes, to be honest. Now, as some of you know, I've worked in artificial insemination, and I was sort of taught a lot more than I really needed to know, and I've come across a few bits and pieces since working there, which have explained a few things to me. Including one article on a lesbian couple who desperately wanted a baby. What she's done there is actually very easy to do, and most people don't understand anything about it or how to do it because they've never heard about it, except the odd lesbian couple probably knows exactly how to do it. Basically, artificial insemination isn't something that's a terribly new practice. It's actually been used since the 1700s. That's right, the 1700s. Like a few hundred years, 300 years or so, they've actually been doing artificial insemination. It may even be the late 1600s, I don't know. I did know, but... and there's been, you know, different things, guys with medical issues, guys who, you know, well, for all intensive purposes are probably in the same position this woman's in with a husband in jail, and, you know, different issues, medical problems, whatever, whereby they've had to use artificial insemination to conceive a child. Long and short of it is it's actually a very simple procedure that just involves a syringe, no needle, but just a syringe, and the rest well, both man and woman have got enough to do the rest, to put it like that. Really speaking with semen, aside from exposure to the air allowing it to dry out, being one of its major enemies, you know, major things that wipes it out. The other thing is temperature stabilization. Now, if you can basically get sperm to stay at the same temperature as what it is inside the body, it will live longer than if it gets too cold or too hot. And you know, it's not abnormal. All the cases we were looking at, I think it was about 3 days this stuff will last. Easily. I think the cases we were dealing with specifically would last, they had to last at least 2 days, and most of them, well, quite a few of it was 3 days. So yeah, it was 2 to 3 days before they were actually, you know, used. In the case of where I was working, but there wasn't a single one that was less than 18 hours because of, oh well, just the way it was all set up. Administration-wise and transport-wise, it you know, there wasn't a single batch that got out under 18 hours. Best case scenario, but most of it was over 24 hours. Most of it was, you know, around the 2-day mark. I think it easily lasts 3 days now. And I think a lot of the time they were, you know, making it last 3 days. Yeah. So long story short, in the case of humans, your natural body temperature is 38.7 degrees Celsius, or exactly 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Of course, your testicles are a little bit lower. And the idea of that is to allow them to cool slightly. But you look at humans and it's not like they're dramatically, they're going to be a great deal less temperature, really speaking. They're not going to be much difference in temperature at all. And so long as you can stabilise the temperature, you'll be fine. Now, how would you try to stabilise temperature of semen? Well, easy. Well, your body's probably running at 38.7 degrees Celsius, or it should be. You know, the semen's probably no less than, it might be like 37 instead of 38.7. You know, it might be 1.5 degrees or something less, temperature-wise. And basically, you know, they test your temperature sometimes in your ear, and you know where another spot is? Underneath your armpits. So instantly, if you could somehow keep it against your body, it would last longer. If you could keep it under your armpits, it would last best of all. But the reality is that you only need the syringe, really speaking, at the women's end of the equation. And you know, it's very easily doable because it's already been done several hundred years. So I'm not surprised by it at all. Apparently there's quite a lot that have done it, but you know, people under hard times will do a lot of different things like that. And you know, while it might be in part, you know, oh, we're going to slow up the amount of Palestinians, or we're going to stop this guy having kids. Nah, if you can get that semen out there, he can have kids. There's no question about it. You know, other than drying out and then temperatures, the next one is bacteria that's on the end of the penis and whatnot can start sort of, you know, growing amongst that semen and living off, well, I believe there's some sort of a protein mix that the semen sort of swim in that is not only what they swim in but also what they feed from, and the bacteria will, you know, eat that. But none of that's a problem if it's dealt with fairly quickly. And realistically, you know, from the time they deal with it, from the time they get it from him out of the prison to her, it's not unrealistic that it could be an hour. You know, and I'm telling you right now that semen will last and is used on a commercial basis up to 3 days away all the damn time. And it may well last, you know, they find murdered rape victims and they track who the murderer is at times using the semen, and the uterus is the best thing, bar nothing, to help semen survive. Just the temperature of it, the moisture of it, boom, 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 all that. You know, I gather it can survive in there for something like about 10 days. So, as I said, you know, if everything's done correctly, you'd be surprised at how long it goes. I think ours, I'm not too certain, but I think the general rule was if it's any more than 5 days from production, it's considered rubbish and you've got to throw it out. I don't know if that was a company policy or not, but you know, try to keep it to within the 2, maybe 3 days, and after that, your chances of failing fast, you know. And where I was, that actually use about 3 kinds of antibiotics in the sperm, in the semen, to kill off commonly known bacteria that tend to live on the end of penises, and that sort of, you know, assisted in the longevity of it and the, well, you know, you can get a dud batch if you don't try and suppress that, and in some cases it can not go very well at all for the woman, sort of thing. So, you know, because you don't need any more bacteria in places where you shouldn't, where you don't need any excess bacteria in the first place. But anyway, that's just my little waffle on it all. It's not far-fetched at all. It's been done for a few hundred years. And I mean, honestly, cost-wise, holy smoke, you could do it $3 a pit, basically. You can go and buy syringes in bulk and they're only like a couple of dollars each. And I think, you know, that they may be even less. It may be more like about 50 cents each. You know, and so long as you're at the right point of your cycle there, you know, you've got like about a 3-day window of fairly high fertility every month as a human, and you know, basically, if you make it happen in that window of opportunity, you should be right. And most women will know exactly when that window of opportunity is, or they, you know, wouldn't take them much to work it out, because there's, I'm not right in on that, but there's literature that explains all of that stuff. I think it's in the last week before your period or whatever. But yeah.